Anxiety, I guess, in its basest form is the idea that something's going to happen in the future and I won't be able to cope. So when we speak about stress, what is stress? What is anxiety? It's actually the difference between the resources that I think I have and the thing I'm going to have to cope with. So it's that kind of space in between. So there's two things that we can do. We can either kind of develop the resources. So Harry's kind of pointing out some really wonderful things. When people sit in my office, I always speak about the basics first. Eat, sleep, move. And that sounds really simple, but as he points out, it makes sense for a lot of reasons. We know that routine, we're creatures of habit, that really helps. Why does that help? Because the expectation of what you're going to do next is there. That's very containing. We know now that if we're eating the right foods, the microbiome in our stomach that affects our nervous system, that affects our biochemistry, that's kind of something that's able to kind of regulate in a more positive way. We know if we move, and we're not just talking about endorphins, I'm talking about the basics of kind of going for a walk outside. It's kind of leaving the screens that we've all been attuned to. That makes a big difference. It allows us to connect with nature. We know that this has an effect on even parts of the brain that allow us to ruminate, like the prefrontal cortex. We're learning all this now. Wonderful. Sleep. Back in the day when I was studying to be a psychologist, we'd always ask about sleep in relation to depression and anxiety, thinking that depression and anxiety cause sleep disturbance. We now know that sleep disturbance feeds into depression and anxiety. So getting those three basics right is fundamental. But then beyond that, it's also about kind of looking at what are those thought patterns that are kind of increasing in our anxiety. And one of the ones that, I come across time and time again is this need for certainty, right? It's this need for control. So as long as I'm sure that everything's going to work out the way that I want, then I can relax. Of course, there's no way we can ever be certain of things happening, right? That's just that's in fact the only certainty of life, that things will blindside us. So instead, kind of having an understanding where we're able to tolerate uncertainty, but also react to that uncertainty in a more logical, I guess, almost scientific way. So again, I always speak about the difference between reacting to possibility versus probability. So we're all sitting here now having this discussion, and it's possible that an earthquake could happen, and we'd have to stop talking. But none of us are thinking about that because it's a tiny remote possibility. When we're anxious, though, we kind of inflate that possibility. We go on probability, right? So we kind of inflate it. So the point is, we need to look at what is likely to happen as opposed to what may happen. And the other thing that I would say, again, especially when it comes to anxiety, there's something really nourishing about trying to stay in the present. I think the reason we've had so much talk about mindfulness and things like that is because it allows us to engage fully with what we're doing now rather than having this anticipatory anxiety of what may go wrong. So I think if you can get sort of the basics right, if you can learn to kind of challenge those cognitive distortions, and if you can go on probability versus possibility when it comes to what you're worrying about, then it'll stand you in good stead.